Hello again, and welcome to this interview in the series that is all about empowering a league of extraordinary mothers on how to use the power of food to get more energy, a body we love, and that zest for life that we crave. Today we have with us Stacey Clare. Stacey is a health and nutrition coach that loves to share real food recipes and nutrition tips for the whole family. Her passion and expertise is in helping mums make real food real easy. Hi, Stacey.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're so
Hi, guys. Hi, mamas.
Let's start with your story. So do you prefer, sometimes I see you write Stace and sometimes Stacey. Do you have a preference?
Yeah. If I'm not in trouble, I like Stace. Yes.
Good. All right,
Those days, tell me that Mum used to call you, Stacey, get here now. Yeah.
You know, you're not in trouble. We'll stick with that.
Okay, cool.
So Stace, let's start with your story and how you came to be doing the work that you do.
Yeah. I feel like it's not too dissimilar to so many stories. So other mamas, if this is the same as you, take heart. There is other crazies out there. Before kids, I was working in marketing and advertising and just working too long hours, really, as so many of us do in our early careers.
Yep.
And I was eating potato chips and drinking a bottle of wine at my desk at night because my workplace was too tight to actually buy us dinner, but expected us still to be there to 10 o'clock at night. And it sort of got to about 2 years in, and then my husband and I said, let's start trying for a baby, because we were well aware it was probably going to take us a while, because I've got polycystic and endometriosis, and I'd had one operation, and they said to me, the best way to get rid of this is to get pregnant. Like as a 25, 26-year-old, I was like, oh yeah, that's not going to happen, but I appreciate it. And he sort of was really honest and said, so when it is time, really try, a long time before you think you'd want it. Yep. And so we were, and it just wasn't working. And I guess I went in for my next operation to have, to sort of rid myself of the endometriosis. And the actual professor, and I was really lucky, he was, I had the head of endometriosis at the Women's Hospital in Sydney that was actually my operator. I was incredibly lucky. And he himself said, I think you really need to go and see a naturopath and start chatting to somebody about your food, which any of us that if we actually hear this, from professors is like, that's a big deal. These guys don't even learn half this stuff at medical school, right? So for them to realise, look, there's probably another way you need to be looking at. And so I did do that. And I started sort of on this path of, just coming off simple things like you don't need to eat bread for breakfast, lunch and dinner. Could you find a better option? Eventually we fell pregnant, and I unfortunately had my son premature. So he was 31 weeks to the day. And grab a 30 centimetre ruler out and look at the size of that thing, because that was my little Oscar. And I feel like that's another sort of kick in the butt to, like, there is so much unfortunate things that happen in life, and I know that. But there's also a lot of preventable things. Yeah. And I didn't want something that I was doing if I could have had a better outcome for it. And I don't know, being a premie, if that was my fault. Yeah. But I do know him, getting a cold every week is something that I could help him with. So again, it was just another kick to do this. So I studied health coaching actually at the Institute of Integrative Nutrition, IIN, which a lot of people have sort of heard of. Some of the big guns that you've even interviewed here have studied there. And all I wanted was to basically learn a different way about how to eat differently. Yeah. And then eventually ended up coaching. I should caveat too, there was one last kick of when Augie came home from hospital, we actually had him stop breathing. And thank God I had listened, I'm a good little listener, at being told how to give CPR to a 1.5 kilo baby, because there's something giving CPR to a baby and then there's something giving CPR to him. And luckily I got him back, but we spent sort of 5-6 days in the local hospital, then doing everything to him, trying to figure out, was there any issues, anything hereditary? Like, why did he have this stop breathing? And I remember, like, my husband holding him in the emergency, and he just said, game on. Like, we have to change this stuff, because if any of it's preventable, I'd rather you buy that organic food. And I get cranky and I go, God, why is it so expensive? But it is so worth it. And I can see now he's nearly 6, and he's had antibiotics once because we got walking pneumonia, the whole family, when he was 2. But he's never had it. He's never had ear infections. He's never had stuff with his throat. Like, this stuff can be frustrating, I know, for you mamas, but and something I talk about a lot with my coaching clients is, but what's the knock-on effect of that? And think through the time of it, and taking time off work to look after the kids and taking them to the doctors and doing all those things that you have to do with 6 kids. It's probably more worth giving them some real food, that's made real easy, in the first place, and just getting to where you want to be. So
yeah, absolutely. It's an investment in our health. It's really,
yeah,
I think it's a no-brainer, but it's, I raised for many years, 7, nearly 8 years, raised 4 children on my own as a single mum, and I would rather shop at the op shop and buy organic food than do it the other way around. And it is just a choice, but there's always a way.
Yeah. And kind of looking at, and I guess this is what the beautiful thing here is looking at other mamas that, I definitely did that, and I did it with kindness and love. Is I'd go like, how do they have kids like that? Or how do they look like that? Like, I'd look at Sarah Wilson and I'm like, if you see her in person, like, she looks so healthy. She doesn't look disgustingly thin and all this that some people want to say that she is. Maybe it's just a, have a dig. She looks incredible. What does she do? She just eats real food and she looks after herself. You know what I mean? Like, and she's battling huge things, but she's still, so that's sort of what I did as well. And I was like, I really want to use them as inspiration and get to that. So, yeah.
I think that's enormously powerful. I mean, we can read stuff in books and all the shoulds and shouldn'ts, and there's plenty of that.
Yeah.
There's always something to support an argument or disprove it or whatever the information is. But looking at people, and I have a similar story. It was, I had eaten my way and drunk my way to being really unwell when I was, I think in 24. I got to about 24, and my mum was like, ended up sending me to a naturopath, and that's where I met this woman, and I looked at her and she was just this glowing example of vitality and warmth and health, and I was like, actually, that's kind of more what I want to be like. And that's what started me on my path. It was one meeting with one woman. So that's I think there's a lot of power in that, in being the example. And I often talk about my wish is to be that example to my kids. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess that's too how I came to being a coach as well. Like, I felt like there is so much information out there, and I wish that I have had someone like what I am now 5 years ago, because not everybody needs a naturopath or nutritionist. A lot do, but there's some like me that sort of had some medical stuff going on, but really I needed like that nitty gritty of someone to be like, this is how you make bone broth, but this is how you actually have it, and this is why you have it, and this is, you cook your rice in it and you put it in your spag bowl. And it was kind of, I think I wish I had have known that people like my profession are around now, because it would have speediated the amount of blog reading and sort of, wishing and hoping for me to get to sort of some point was actually there. So, yeah.
I think, we've talked before about, this work of health coaches, and coaches are becoming more and more of a common thing in Australia, but it's still something that is pretty new, and a lot of people have never even considered using a coach. So maybe if you spend a bit of time telling us what exactly a health coach is and what women come to you for and how long they work with you, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. So I guess a coach is somebody that's going to not necessarily always hold you accountable, but there's a lot of people that love that, but is really going to guide you and motivate you to make changes.
Yeah.
So I'll often have mamas that will come to me, anything from that their family's been diagnosed with an intolerance, or they're trying to heal their gut, get organised. They're sick of, doing an online course and doing 2 weeks of it and then dropping off. I get a lot of, I would say, 50 to 60% of my mums have done that because that's when they literally come to me after that. They're just like, if I could do this, one-on-one, and that's really what I do. So we take 45 minutes. Sometimes we're chatting like this. Sometimes I've got them in the kitchen and I'm showing them how to make sauerkraut on Skype. We're going through their pantry. Again, you can do all of this anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
But it's so nice, I feel like, to have somebody that can guide you and support you that whole way. And that's really it. So I look at things that aren't just food related. So they're very mental and physical as well, because us mamas see huge shifts when we start thinking happy thoughts, and sometimes that's simply just writing down 2 or 3 things at dinner with the kids that's made us really happy that day, or being able to get out for a walk and listen to a podcast or listen to something like this that's just for us, and sometimes it's just taking that time with somebody and going, actually, you know what, you're right, I'm going to give that a go. I'm going to see if that really does help me. Yeah. Of course, there's a few mamas that will come to me to lose weight, but I don't specialise in that. I'm always just say that's the knock-on effect when I guide you and pull you off processed foods, and I help you eat breakfast that's real in the morning. Like we do have time to make 2 eggs and put it on a gorgeous piece of sourdough toast and have baby spinach that's fresh, and with a bit of balsamic on top. Like that is as quick as dumping cereal into a container. It's just that you pop the eggs on before you brush your teeth and you put your makeup on, and then you go back and they're cooked and you slide them off. So yeah.
It's often, making these changes takes a little bit of time initially, but once it's in place, it's all becomes really, it just slots
absolutely
in. It just does.
And it's amazing too, and I'm sure you probably felt it as well, Edwina, of like you start feeling good pretty quick, and that's often a motivator in itself. Usually at the first session I will work on them is breakfast, and I sort of mentioned that there because I really do believe that once we sort that out, both for yourself and for your kids, like the knock-on effect is huge. I do that again because it's my insurance policy to a 10 o'clock meltdown from my kids that are absolutely knackered because all I've given them is Wheat Bix and milk, and it hasn't filled them up. It's plugged a hole, and they're, it's so high in GI that they've just gone and then they just drop off. Whereas if I give them, like this morning, they had baked beans with frozen peas through it, piece of sourdough and a cucumber on the side. Yeah. Like they weren't eating until 11:30, but their blood sugar levels are stable. Yeah. And mine were too, and that helps me make a better decision for lunch of what we're going to eat because I'm not knackered and I'm not just like, oh, whatever, here you go, which make a better decision for dinner, which in turn makes you think happier thoughts, and you sort of, when your kids are thriving as well, there's more time for yourself, and you can sit there and do what you need to do sometimes too. So, I think it's a win-win for everybody when you sort of overhaul the whole family. And I guess that's something that I think is worth looking at.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that free time. I like to do a bit of nothing, actually.
Yeah, me too.
Up with something. We live in this doing world, don't we? We've always got to be doing something. But I just like to talk about, we can actually do nothing.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
So let's look at, all these changes as we've kind of come to. It takes a little bit of time and a little bit of effort. one of the big things that I know that you excel at and is just so helpful is the menu planning bit. So having the food in the pantry and the fridge that we need, having the menu, having it so we're not walking into the kitchen going, oh, what's for dinner tonight 5 minutes before we're supposed to eat.
Yeah.
So let's spend some time helping our beautiful mum work.
Definitely. This is the blueprint to get there. And I think you said the first thing, which is having the stock of this stuff in the pantry.
Yeah.
So I often do that, and it's an interesting one of everyone is different. Of do you sort of pull out things that are unideal in there, or do you use them up? That's entirely your call. But definitely having a pantry, I think, that has some really good basics in there is a really great spot to start. And basics don't have to be too big. You know, like I have brown rice, so that if I need brown rice flour for a recipe, I just whack it in the blender and it mills and the job is done. You know, oats as well. I buy whole oats, but if I need quick oats for a recipe, then I just blend them and it's done. You know, coconut, I buy one type of coconut, and if it needs to be desiccated or chunked, you know, it's either blended or not. So I think there's always...
Can you do that in a normal blender?
Yeah. I've actually I've been upgrading. I have a KitchenAid, and that was amazing. And that did it. Then I went to a Vitamix, and I've loved the Vitamix. Gosh, that is great. And now it's only been after I set myself a challenge of decluttering to buy a Thermomix. I didn't want to, you know, expense it or any of that. I was like, I want to clean out. And it took me 6.5 months. But I got to my $2,000, and now I'll never go back like that. I see why it has such a cult following. They're just incredible. But yeah, so that would be sort of the first place to start is just making sure you've got your basics in the pantry. And the next is doing a meal plan. Now, I know it's hard to find time to do meal plans, so you have lots of options. The first is buy one. And I do sell them on my website. I have slow cooker meal plans, and I have everyday meal plans, but it could be somewhere else as well. Like there's lots of ways that you can get that. Or better still, what I do is I often have time, but I'll do a 2-week meal plan at that sort of point. Is I'll sit down and I can give it 10 minutes. And when I sit down, I just draw up my paper with the days at the top. And sometimes I often do sort of breakfast and dinner, because so often my dinner leads into breakfast. We eat leftovers, or there's some part of it that I can make into that, or it's going into the next night. And then once I've got my days drawn up, I go through and just have a quick look at my calendar of what we've got on, just to make sure that, you know, if we've got soccer or we've got swimming after school, and I know that that's going to lead into when it's nearly time for dinner, well, great, that's the day that my head thinks and goes slow cooker day. Takeaway, like it could be a really good takeaway, and I'm never going to judge that. Or it could be something from the freezer or leftovers from the night before. And then I question, and this is a sort of big aha moment that I get from a lot of mamas, is then I go, look, how do you actually want to eat? Do you want to be having more vegetarian meals a week? Because we often say that, and then we get to the end of the week and we're like, whoa, I don't know how that, you know, how did that happen? So then go and write underneath it and say Monday's vegetarian and Thursday's vegetarian. That makes it a heck of a lot easier and quicker for you to do a meal plan, because you know what days you're having what. I dare say too, a lot of us would like to eat more fish, and I eat probably 2 veggie meals a week and 2 fish meals. So I just go and plot those on it, and then that helps me really speed up what I'm going to be cooking. I'm a cookbook gal. I love them, and I often will do like one cookbook for the week, because I really like cooking from cookbooks. And it's not every recipe, but there might be something from there that I'm wanting to try, a new dish. And I'm always looking too at how I can cook extra and either put it in the freezer or reinvent it the next night. So those reinventions can be so easy. You know, it can be spag bowl one night that the family loves, and you're trying it with a new type of, say, brown rice pasta this time, and seeing, or quinoa pasta, and seeing how that goes. And then the next night making it into a pizza, so that you get a pizza base, and, you know, laying that on it with a bit of cheese, and you have it with a great salad. That's an awesome one to be able to pull on when you're coming home, you know, from swimming lessons, and you're arriving home at 5 o'clock because dinner's done in 15 minutes. The kids are going to love it.
Yeah.
And you're going to be stoked too, because that whole thought of spending extra money that we were sort of chatting about at the start of, you know, eating this way and eating whole foods and ideally choosing organic food, you're using everything up. And I think we often forget that too, of like, think about when you grow stuff, like you use that whole plant.
Yeah.
And for me, buying organic, I feel I do that too, because it does hurt every time. I'm like, geez, you know, like I spend probably $150 to $200 every 2 weeks. So $100 it really is a week for fresh veggies and fruit for my family of 5, which I still think is really good for organic, but it's definitely not as cheap as Aldi. But what it does make me do is I use up every part of that. And I get excited if I can buy the carrots, you know, that have the green tops on them, because then I can use that for a salad.
Yeah.
At the moment there's beets at the markets I've been able to get, which is brilliant because they've all got their leaves on it too. And then that's my salad leaves for the week. And you know, you can find all those sort of quick ways to save money.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really good way to sort of get yourself eating really well with that blueprint.
That's I get all my fruit and veg delivered from a local biodynamic farm, which I mean is the most amazing luxury. But for a family of 5, I get a mixed box for $100 a week.
That's great.
Delivered to my house. So it's, you know, I'm prepared to invest that. I actually don't know what the average household is for a family of 5 for fruit.
Well, but I feel like too there's this whole glory in, oh my gosh, I only spent this amount of money. And I often question that, and not to them, you know, exactly, but when my coaching clients say it, and I'm like, but think of the knock-on effect, you know, of $40 a week. Like, what is that, you know? And I could be way off, you know, but I dare say, you know, you may be happy to go to the doctors, and what does that cost? You know, there's not many Medicare bulk bill decent doctors around. You got to drive there. You've got to buy the medicine, because, you know, getting a script after seeing the doctor is kind of like a certificate that, you really were sick, you know, you needed these. And I don't want any of that. Like, you know, I don't want to know even who my GP is. I just want to plod along without the need for it. So,
So have you got some tips for helping mums source their fruit and veg, other than, so where would you send people other than the supermarket?
Never really to the supermarket. For me, I'm based in Sydney, and although I do, you know, work all over, but I often recommend people there is to find sort of the wholesalers of the organic shops. So in Sydney, Brisbane and Melbourne, if you look up, and mamas write this one down, Eco Farms. So Eco Farms is basically the hugest Australian distributor of organic fresh fruit and veg. So they're the guys that out in their warehouse in Sydney are putting the labels of either Coles or Woolworths on it, and also packing everything up for our chains in Sydney, like About Life and such. And so they have a tiny little shop. I often drive out there, and yes, it takes me 20 minutes to probably do it. But again, it's the ease of it, of I can drive straight into this warehouse. I buy everything I need. They carry it to my car. So I can be wearing my little 10-month-old, and my kids sort of help me. So I encourage them to find that. Absolutely, the boxes that you mentioned. And these, you know, I have kids that, like, they love cucumbers and little baby carrots and tomatoes in their lunchbox. But that's okay if it's not there every week. Like, I want to show them what seasonality by buying these boxes are. And to be honest, I've only just started doing it in the last sort of 3-4 months. I really enjoy that. Because it makes me think differently, and it makes me try different kinds of food. You know, I love, like, I wouldn't usually buy eggplant. I know that's taboo, but my family doesn't love it. But I love getting it because I really like it. It makes me make baba ganoush, which then makes me eat it. You know, so I think that's a really great way. Definitely doing co-ops with your friends as well. So look around, and I dare say, you know, it's exciting when you find like-minded people in your community, and say, guys, like, do you want to go in on this? You know, a lot of people do that. I'm in the inner city of Sydney, and they'll drive out to the markets, be it Flemington or even where I'm talking about. And so one mama will do that every 2 months, and they sort of buy enough and everyone comes back and divvies it up. My school actually does that now. So they have a co-op, an organic veggie co-op at our school. And all of us mums help on a Thursday. Again, bubs in hands and half of us yelling out to the kids to run across the playground, you know, for pickup. Where there's a will, there's a way.
That's awesome.
And I guess the last is farmers markets. They're just so great. I just love them. So
good. I think they're talking about eating seasonally. That's a great way to save some money as well, because what's currently in season and hasn't been stored is the freshest and the cheapest usually.
Totally. I got for $8. I got 1 kilo of organic berries at my farmer's market on the weekend. You know, that's not even 2 punnets of normal conventional, and then 125 grams. You know. So I bought 5 or 6 and I put them in the freezer. You know, because that's going to be great. They're going to be beautiful. That's the same way of the things that we're buying in the bags. And that doesn't happen. It may not even be there next week, but this week it was. So I'm like, great. You know, I'm going to sort it out. So,
The other place that I think is great for finding local kind of co-ops and things like that is on Facebook pages. If you put in your suburb or your town, they often have Facebook pages.
Oh, that's a great tip. Nice one. Write that one down.
We need a little printable tip sheet. There's lots in this interview.
Because you can do that with meat as well. Like I have done that where I've gone in with others, and it's not that I even actually knew them, but it's I saw it on Landline because I'm a dork and I quite like it. And if it's on, I don't hunt it down. But they were talking about that, of going in with others that you may not know, but they're geographically close to you, and buying a whole animal. So I think I got a quarter of a cow or so, and it was incredibly cheap, and I could choose, even I could go as far to tell them how I wanted it shrink wrapped. So could you do 1 kilo of minced shrink wrap versus a 5 kilo lot, you know, shrink wrapped and stuff. So hunt it down and find it, because it's worth it. We want that world for us and for our kids too, right? Where we look at small producers that are doing things the right way. Otherwise, where are our kids going to get jobs? Like, that's what I often think. I'm like, you know, if there's just Amazon and the Woolworths, like.
Absolutely. If we can support our little farmers and eat, you know, that's all part of that eating seasonally and eating local, and it's all better for us. It's better for the planet. It's just a ripple effect. It's awesome.
Absolutely.
So we talked a lot about the fruit and veg. So how do you stock your pantry if you're not?
There's another one, mamas. Grab that piece of paper again. I go to Honest to Goodness online website. They deliver all over Australia. And I have had a lot of regional clients that have done the maths and said, by far, even having to pay a bigger delivery fee for them to get it into Alice Springs, I've even had a client that got it there, it was worth it. Why? Because if you spend over $500, you can qualify for a wholesale account. You don't need an ABN, you don't need nothing. You just need to say, I'm going to spend over $500, and you get a unique login. I have found that to be so much cheaper. And an example is, I love a really nice coconut oil, because sometimes coconut oil can taste nasty. I would pay around $30 a jar for it, and I loved the jars because they've got the little ring pulls on them, so then I can use them in my pantry. And they're $16 wholesale versus $30. It's such a big difference, and I do everything on there, so I can get everything from washing detergents to my passata, to my spices, to my coconut milk, everything, like flowers. So I really find, and it's all organic. And I love that too, because it keeps us away from the supermarkets, you're right. Like it kind of, like what we were talking about, the seasonality of the veggie boxes. I feel it is also that for the pantry items. Like it makes me think differently. Like if it's a recipe and it says to eat it with rice and I don't have any, but I've got some quinoa, then why not give it a go? You know, what's the harm sort of in it? I just love eating that way. I feel more organized, and it saves me so much money. I think I spend about 800 with them every 4 months, and and then all I buy is meat and veg and the occasional nappies.
We've got a bit of reality TV going on here. I've got my dog wandering around. You can probably hear his claws and he's scratching at the door going, I want to go out. And you've got
can you hear Lily
in the background.
I know. Oh, the reality.
The beauty of working from home. It's all happening.
That's it.
Are you right? Did you want to pause?
Yeah, no. My husband has her.
They're all sorted.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
With that, honest to goodness, we have here in Torquay in Victoria, we've got a couple of women that have set up a business and they do a massive bulk order. Like there is heaps of us, and they do a big thing, pack it all up, and that's how we get it all. It's awesome.
Because I saw another one that's quite popular is Whole Food Collective. I think it's like, so the reality, like you said, jump on Facebook. That's such a great idea, but also Google. And I love, like, we've got mums groups on Facebook, like chat groups. Post in there and just say, guys, where's local that you're all finding is cheaper? Because I often see those threads and I'm like, oh, I need to go, and check that one out. Like, they might be talking about a market and there's a unique store there or something. And
there's always, every area has a community page of some sort, and even if it's not just about food, you can always put something in there. Somebody will know. Somebody will put you in the right direction.
Absolutely.
That's community. That's another part of this wellness puzzle, is connecting with community.
And it makes us not feel isolated, because I really do understand that feeling. I didn't grow up with this at all. And my parents, they talk very kindly about they're happy that I am following this lifestyle, but Costco and Aldi buying in bulk and as much as you can get as cheap as you can is their joy. And I respect that, and it's not my journey to change it. So just know that there is a lot of us that many may see and go, oh, wow, look at that. Oh, they must have so much, like-minded people around you. I don't, at all. I've got girlfriends and my local area, I really stick to those, but my family doesn't, and that's cool. Because I believe in what I'm doing enough to not have to preach to them.
It's a big part of this journey, and making changes is resisting the urge to tell everyone else what they should be doing. Just living by example. As soon as we're told what to do, it's like, no.
Well, that's it. And that's, if you're wanting help, then you come and find it. I remember I was vegan actually for nearly 3 years, and I cooked meat for my husband nearly every night. Because it wasn't his journey. And like, that's cool. Like he was, half the time he was like, oh, bugger it, I couldn't be bothered to cook the meat. Like, I'll eat what you're eating. But I'm like, it just doesn't, I'm not that type of person that has to be like, no, we do it this way, We'll get there ourselves. So
it doesn't work. It just irritates people.
That's it.
Except for our kids, they have to do what they're told.
Well, I feel like it's setting them up, and then they can choose later on. My son was talking about that with me, and he's in kindy, and so the reading is really coming on as it does at that age. And he said, oh, I could read in the canteen. They had a popper called Up and Go. Do you think I could get that, Mama? Like, it looks like it's breakfast and it says it's just got Wheat Bix and milk in it. And I said to him, actually, we'll go to the supermarket and I'll show you. I said, but if you want me to make you something like that, I will. And I guess I'm lucky that he's young enough that's enough, and I know with teenagers it is trickier, but you would hope that if you're doing this from an early enough age, that it's an easier fight to have with them.
Yeah.
And education. I mean, there's so much more of it now. Like, I often have a lot of clients that I tell them to sit down and watch the sugar film, sugar film with their kids, because it's easy to digest language for the kids to understand, and it helps them understand why their mums are trying to help them this way. So
it is a great resource.
Yeah, incredible. Yeah, and there's so many. I'm sure other speakers have chatted about those, but I think it's not shying away from these conversations with our kids, because we try and teach them how to have compassion and give them boundaries around, good and bad behavior and stuff at the playground. Like, that's not on hitting.
Yeah.
Why aren't we doing that with food? Like, no, it's not on. I can't give you that kind of food. We'll make something better that will taste similar, because I love you so much and I don't want you to feel crap afterwards.
Yeah. There's actually, it is actually something that we haven't touched on in any other interviews, and I think it is a great resource, is, that a lot of these movies are on Netflix, the Magic Pill and What's with Wheat and the sugar film and, Sick, Fat and Nearly Dead or something.
Sick, Fat, Nearly Dead. Yeah.
Can you think of any others? There's a few.
You said Food Matters there before. I even found, I loved, and it's probably more for a teenager, but the Catalyst, when they did the gut health ones, like, they were incredible. And that was such huge changes out of those. I even know my husband, that's not usually into any of this stuff.
Yeah.
However, he's grateful, I think, that he eats food that is good, because then when he wants to go and have a burger, that it's not any, issue with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, he loved watching that Catalyst. It was really easy for him to understand and enjoyed it. So
that's a brilliant show.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
All right. So if we spend our last little bit of time together, just to give, mums have got a lot to take away from this interview already. It's been awesome. But maybe if you had somebody that came to you and said, I'm tired of being exhausted all the time. I'm so tired. What are your top kind of things that you would look at addressing and helping work through?
I would look at what they're, like, we'd look at their food diary. So I'd get them to do a food diary.
Yep.
And we'd see, is it alcohol? Is it caffeine?
Yep.
And often, is it in excess of wheat and convenience kind of foods? And that isn't necessarily us going, I don't go through drive-through, but do you rely on muesli bars to fuel you and processed breakfast cereal, and you have a sandwich for lunch, and pasta at dinner time? Well, those sort of things. So I tend to help limit the caffeine. By no means is it always coming off it, but many like to eventually come off it.
Yeah.
It would be overhauling their breakfast so that they've got a hit of protein to start their day, helping teach them how to chew their food, because that's where the majority of our digestive enzymes are, is in our saliva and our mouth.
Yep.
So if we're taking 2 chews and sort of throwing it down, it's not going to digest well, for us. It's making sure that we're having adequate water throughout the day as well. Really probably brekkie, getting off too much coffee, limiting our sugar, and drinking enough water to fuel ourselves. And that sounds overwhelming, which I guess is why sometimes it's just going, look, maybe if I do this one-on-one with someone, I'll probably stay more on track. That's where I got to, and I tend to do that now with a lot of my times. Unless it's a really intimate workshop, but I sort of view that more as one-on-one because I've got them there. I don't put my time to it, because if I sign up to do a 12-week course, I just don't do it, and it frustrates me, so I need it just to be that bit easier. So
Absolutely. You touched on water there. I think that's always worth kind of talking about just a little bit more, and the effects of drinking our town water versus filtered water.
Yeah. And look, it doesn't have to be expensive to get a water filter, to get the chlorine out, and to get all of those good minerals in as well, so that we can actually digest our water. I bought myself one. It was $100. I know that sounds like a lot of money, but I don't have to change the cartridges for 3 to 4 years, and that's a reverse osmosis, which apparently is great. I remember calling up the guy. I actually did a video of it on my blog. So if anyone wants to search for it, Stacey Clare, like water filter, I think. And I was just like, what do I do? Like, I don't know where to start with this stuff. And he basically took me on a good one. He said, it's either in a bottle and it will do it yourself, or it's having it out on the bench and like you can get a bigger one that you fill up, or having your own tap if you've got enough room to put it under your sink, the part for it. And I did have enough room. And it's great because it has a runoff. This is something I didn't realise about water filters, is they dump half the water that they clean. And that freaked me out when I heard that. So when my plumber put it in, I ran to the local hardware store and bought a little hose that was big enough, and that moves around my garden and waters my garden ongoing whenever. So I have, and people that follow me on social media will see I take photos of my tomato plants are like 10 foot high at least, because they're getting that little trickle of water all day, every day. And I don't have to think about it. And then I move it onto the lemon tree and keep in mind my garden's about as big as your area behind you. Like I live in a shoebox, so it probably makes itself around to be able to, to get done.
That shoebox size is pretty normal for inner Sydney. It's probably luxury.
Yeah. But it's pumped full of veg that I grow a lot in that little section. So I remember looking at that reverse osmosis and thinking about the water wastage. So I think that's fantastic that you found a way to. There's a way.
Yeah. I have a Zazen water filter which sits on my it sits on the bench, and I actually couldn't kind of work out what I wanted, and ended up just going with something that somebody I knew had done all the homework.
That's what I was like. I rang the guy and I was like, do you have 10 minutes? Best done. Buy it once and be done with it.
I think the bit I like about the Zazen water filters is they put them in schools for nothing if the schools ring up, or they used to. I might be dobbing them in.
About to get 5,000 calls.
But it's worth ringing.
Totally. Try it out, guys. Cool.
So what haven't we covered?
I feel like we've done that. I reckon you guys have got a good blueprint. What I will give to, I guess, as the gift is jump over through the link, and I will give you a 1-week meal plan that has the full ingredients list, the full shopping list, the full recipes, and that meal plan, so that when you are trying to eat healthier, how do you actually do it? Try it this way, because then that'll be a great template for you guys weeks going forward. So you'll see how I write my shopping list, which is in sections. So this is all the veg together. This is all the meat. So then it speeds up you getting around the supermarket, if that's where you buy it, or whether you're at, any of the stores that you visit. Come across, and if you need me one-on-one, I'd love to help you.
That's a fantastic interview, and there has been so much in here. It's absolutely gold. So thank you for your time.
No worries, guys. Enjoy all the others. See
Bye
you.
for now.